Hi, my name is Corliss Jackson, and I'm with Federal Job Results. And today I'm going to talk to you about why you might want to pursue federal employment as an option. Basically, many people will want to pursue federal government employment for several different reasons. First reason is stability. It is rare that a federal government employee gets laid off. There are no pink slips in the federal government, and once you have gotten through your first year of employment with a federal agency, which is generally the probationary period time, 12 months, it is pretty much impossible to get rid of you. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of documentation that has to, um, be written up and documented. And basically, unless you do something really horrible or terribly egregious, they are going to consider you kind of stable in that position. It's going to be really hard to move you out. Now, if you do get what we call laid off, or let's say your program gets abolished, or the unit within the agency is combining with another agency unit and they don't have a home for you, they don't have a position for you, you will go on a priority placement list where similar positions in other agencies are kind of set aside for you, meaning they will have to make sure before they hire anybody in that new agency that there is nobody who's been quote unquote laid off from a federal government position. So stability is one of the main reasons why people will be interested in federal employment. Second reason is benefits. Health benefits, retirement benefits, they're very plentiful in the federal government, and generally, overall, you will pay less money for them. Um, they do have a retirement plan, you do have to contribute, but a lot of times, the benefits that you pay for in the federal sector are less expensive than the benefits that are comparable in the private sector. So it's less money out of your paycheck, and a lot of times you're getting better benefits. Third reason why somebody might want to go federal is for the work life balance issue. What do I mean by that? For the most part, many government jobs will consider a 40-hour work week to be the amount of time that they want you to put in and for you to be done with your work. So there's a lot of work life balance, whereas in the private sector, you might find yourself working, 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus hours per week. There's not really any kind of expectation that you'll be continually monitoring your email, unless that's an expectation that you set up in advance. And generally, once you put in your hours for the day, if you want to leave at 3:30 and you've put in your hours for the day, you can walk out of there at 3:30. A lot of work-life balance, a lot of consideration of individuals' time. You also get federal holidays off, and when you start with a federal agency, you'll get 2 weeks of paid leave per year, and then that increases over time. You can negotiate up to 4 weeks per year of paid vacation time, but that's a negotiation um, piece that you have to take care of before you first start your federal engagement. Another reason why somebody might want to look at federal employment is because of the dedication to public service. Most jobs in the government have some kind of connection to a larger mission, whether it be public health or public safety or clean environment. Really, the mission of the organization for many people is paramount, and they're very tied into what that mission entails. So, you'll find a lot of folks who maybe have gone through a career where they've made some money and now they're less interested in the money component and more interested in the public service component. All right, and lastly, there's also a perception of fairness in hiring practices. And why does this exist? This exists because the federal government has a very specific formula for how they make selections during the hiring process. And oftentimes, you will find that if you don't fit into the mold that they're looking for, you're not going to move forward in that process. So they have a very strict process that they follow, very strict guidelines that they follow, and you have to adhere to those in order to move forward in the government. All right, now let's dispel some myths about the federal government. First one is that they aren't hiring. The federal government, regardless of whether or not we are under a so-called hiring freeze, the federal government will always be hiring. Sometimes the hiring shifts from one agency to another. Sometimes the hiring slows down in certain types of positions and maybe speeds up in others. But usually, instead of saying that we're under a freeze and we're not hiring, the government really is shifting its priorities. So you will find that government hires all the time. Maybe it slows down, maybe it speeds up at certain times, but the government will never completely stop hiring people. They have to hire, particularly if there are mission critical positions and individuals are needed to fill those positions in order to fulfill the mission of the organization. Okay. The federal government hires all types of people. The Office of Personnel Management did a study, and this was in 2015, and 1 out of every 3 new hires was a veteran. So that means that 2 out of 3 individuals were not veterans. So whether or not you're a veteran, you can get hired by the federal government. Veterans do have some advantages, but 2 out of 3 individuals who are not veterans also, have advantages. So there's, 2 out of 3 individuals who are getting hired do not have a veteran background, do not have a military background. So, the government hires all types of individuals at all levels in the government, from the very lowest all the way through the very highest. Another myth is about your age. If you are on the older side, maybe you've had a full career and you're looking for another. The government really does not care how old you are. They care most about your skills, the skills that you bring to the table and what you can do for them. They do not care if you're 153, as long as you can do your work and you can perform your work. And you also have to make sure that you have the computer skills to do your work, because one of the biggest challenges for folks who are a little bit older is that there might not be um, they might not be as adept to managing information in this age of the computer. So make sure that your skills are up to par with any age group there. All right, federal government does salary studies constantly in many different arenas, and they are trying very hard to stay comparable with the private sector and the nonprofit sector, and they do a very good job of that. Okay. There are some positions where they can't pay as much, and that's because a lot of times, frankly, you can't have a salary that's over the president's salary. So if you're in a private sector firm and you're making buku money, the government is not going to match your salary simply because it can't, but they will pay in most instances what you're worth, and they will pay what you're worth in your field, because they do those salary studies and they see what people are getting paid in the private sector. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to bring people into the government. Okay. Now let's talk about being overqualified for a position. The government will never tell you, you know what, you can't work for us because you're going to do too good of a job. Okay. The HR folks will not say that you're overqualified for a position. Now, listen up very closely. You may find that an individual who is interviewing you might feel a little bit intimidated by what you bring to the table. Maybe you have a degree that he or she doesn't have, or you have some experience that he or she doesn't have. That can be construed to you as an interviewee as being overqualified. But the government as a whole will not say, you know what, you're bringing too much to the table. We can't hire you because you're going to do too good of a job. It's not the case. It's not going to happen. So remember, when you go into an interview, if you're feeling like the interviewer who's asking you questions might be feeling a little bit intimidated by your background, tone it back a little bit and kind of give them some reassurance that you're not coming in to take over everything, but you want to get, your foot in the door so that you can see what federal government is all about. Okay. Um, the other thing I want to talk about is a short open window for positions. If the government has a short open window In the past, sometimes it meant that they had somebody in mind who was qualified for the position who was going to apply. What this means right now, and as far as short open windows, is that they are looking for fewer applications to be submitted. So, for example, if an agency has a job open for 4 days as opposed to 4 weeks, they are definitely going to get a fewer number of applications in 4 days than they would in 4 weeks. So, oftentimes, many agencies, because there's a huge influx of these applications coming in for people who want federal jobs, many times these agencies will shorten their opening windows for these jobs just so that they can get fewer applications. You may see on a vacancy announcement where it says, we are going to accept only the first 25 applications or the first 50 applications. And why do they do this? Because they want to close that window as soon as they've received those 50 applications, because they're probably going to find a qualified candidate within that short window and within that short stack of applications. All right, now if you find that you need assistance with your federal or your private sector search, please contact us, and you can do that by going to the federaljobresults.com website. I hope this information has been helpful. Thank you.